2028 major site plan amendment. We will be holding our hybrid public meeting, which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia for the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7th, 2022. Members of the SPRC for this project are participating both here in person and virtually through electronic means. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to the hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using Microsoft Teams link provided on the project webpage, the county's event calendar, or the email notification sent. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our members joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you're called upon. Turn off any sound to any other devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in the moment. Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes: for SPRC members who need technical assistance, and for members of the public to add their names to the list for public comment, which will be taken at the end of the meeting. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion. Those who are were planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as the opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public comment period. If SPRC members participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed on and raise your virtual hand in Teams. If we don't notice you, just speak up. I will monitor the video feed, and Peter will monitor the video feed as an indicator if you would like to speak. If SPRC members are participating via phone today without the video option, please announce your name and group you are representing now, and I will verbally check in to see if you wish to be recognized, as you do not have the video feed option. Anyone on the phone? For members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment, you'll be called on to speak at the end of the meeting. Will be allotted 2 minutes to speak on tonight's agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. If you wish to speak, please enter the your name in the meeting chat for virtual attendees, or provide staff with your name in person, and you'll be added to the speakers list. Lastly, this is a public forum. Tonight's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with tonight's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to Freedom of Information Act requirements. Thank you for listening to that. So as I mentioned, I'm Tenley Peterson. I am the Vice Chair of SPRC and also the Chair of this site plan major amendment. And so if we can go around the room and do introductions, and then we will kick off our presentation. So Peter, would you like to go first?
Peter Schultz of the current planning section of the planning division.
Jake Jacoby, representing the Aurora Highland Civic Association.
Administrative Advisory Committee.
I'm Tony Striner. I'm with the Planning Commission.
Peg Flores, I'm with the Transportation Commission.
Eric Berkey, I'm a member of the Planning Commission.
Peter Robertson, Planning Commission.
Leo Sarli, also Planning Commission.
Judy Freshman, Crystal City Civic Association.
Cindy Lewin, Climate Change, Energy, and Environment.
Jack Lester, I'm with EYA, the applicant.
Jack McLaurin with EYA, the applicant.
And I'm Emma Martin with Arlington County.
And do we have SPRC? Well, actually, we have an SPRC member back here.
Leah Bagley, Planning Commission.
Any other SPRC members in the room? Okay, so on video or on the virtual, who do we have?
Jim Land.
Yeah, hi, Jim Lantelme, Planning Commission.
Hi, Jim.
Robert Gibson, Arlington County DES Transportation.
Thank you. Anyone else on video?
Matt Matuszek with the Planning Division.
Okay, and then let's go in the room for people who are here as members of the public.
My name is Elizabeth Merrill. I live in Lion Village. I'm here with my 2 children. One is here for social studies credit, and one is here for 2 different Boy Scout badges.
We love to see future commissioners.
Future land use attorney.
Wait a minute.
Yeah, you're not getting a round of applause. You're not getting a round of applause.
Nicholas Cummings, Walsh Pollution, land use attorney.
And Angelina Fuller with EYA, the applicant.
Great, thank you very much. Okay, full room tonight. I love it. So we're going to start off with a staff presentation, then we'll do an applicant presentation, and then we'll have a conversation among the SPRC members. So Emma, I'll turn it over to you.
Can we all see this well enough? This might be as good as it's going to get. This is, I think, as good as it's going to get, but we can always zoom in if anybody needs to see something a little bit closer up. All right, so good evening. I'm Emma Martin. I'm a planner with Arlington County. In this presentation, I'm going to cover the Crystal House 7 and 8 major site plan amendment, and I'll highlight areas that we'd love to hear your discussion about regarding topics for this meeting, site elements, building elements, and condition changes. Following the major site plan amendment item, Matt Matuzik, who is online, will introduce a zoning ordinance amendment that's going to be related to this site that will impact building heights in certain areas in the CO Crystal City zoning district. The site's located at 1900 South East Street in the Crystal Houses development, which was approved with site plan 451 in 2019. The site plan amendment is specific to Crystal House 7 and 8, which will be located along South Fern Street with Crystal House 7 at the corner of South Fern and 18th Street South. The site is zoned CO Crystal City with a medium residential GLUP designation and is located along the western edge of the Crystal City Coordinated Redevelopment District. The 2019 approved buildings were consistent with the locations provided for in the Crystal City Sector Plan's illustrative plan, and the applicant is providing more public park space than is recommended by the sector plan. In addition, the 2019 approval is compliant with the sector plan's recommendations for building height, form, and design, providing a deliberate and careful taper and height and scale westward towards the existing single-family neighborhoods in Aurora Highlands. The approved new buildings were designed to address scale and walkability and are an improvement over the existing conditions at the site. Currently, the site is developed with 2 multifamily buildings, Crystal House 1 and 2, with 828 existing units, parking garages, surface parking, and a swimming pool. The application is generally in keeping with the intent of the December 2019 approval of the 3/6 of multifamily units. The county board approved site plan 451 in 2019, which permitted retention of 2 existing buildings, Crystal House 1 and 2, 4 new multifamily residential buildings, Crystal Houses 3 through 6, and 3/6 of multifamily units, Crystal House 7 and 8. This approval included 427 units of additional density above the base for a total of 97.17 units per acre. This additional density was achieved through an extensive community benefits package, including the transfer of Crystal House 5 and entitled development to the county to support future construction of committed affordable units, the creation of on-street protected bike lanes, the provision of on-street public spaces, and other streetscape and utility improvements, as well as LEED Gold certification for the new buildings. As amended in October 2023 and April 2024, the site plan is now approved for 98.2 units per acre above the base density of 72 units per acre, which was achieved with the commitment of affordable housing in Crystal Houses 3 and 6. The parking ratio for the site is 0.65 spaces per unit, and it's located in a transit-rich location near the Crystal City Metro Station. The application for a site plan amendment is in keeping with the intent of the December 2019 approval of the 3/6 of multifamily townhouse style units. The applicant is now proposing changes to the building site and conditions, which include reducing the parking ratio and increasing the number of units. The applicant is justifying the additional density through the provision of permitted affordable housing units in Crystal House 3. This is very small. Okay. Well, these slides will be posted, and I'm going to read what they say. I'll summarize. The slide summarizes the changes requested for the site, building, and conditions. Changes to the site include a revised parking garage layout and the reduction of 10 parking spaces, revisions to the courtyard to accommodate a change in the building footprint and landscaping, and a change in the location of transformers. Changes to the building include a revised building footprint and floor plans to increase the number of units with a garage underneath, increasing the building height by 12 feet to add an additional story, minor changes to the facade materiality, and a reduction of the number of accessible units from 2 as previously approved to none. The applicant proposes changes to the condition to modify the parking ratio, clarify requirements for construction timing for various elements, including the masonry wall between Crystal House 6 and 7, the landscaped plaza between Crystal House 7 and 8, elements of the civil engineering plan to clarify length of public storm sewer along South Fern Street that connects to existing storm sewer, the existing storm sewer network, as well as the flexibility for Crystal Houses buildings to either use LEED certification or Earthcraft certification. The dedication of additional units in Crystal House 3 is how they're proposing to earn additional density with this amendment, and the applicant is requesting to use a mix of railing and masonry wall in the area between Crystal House 7 and 6. With this site plan amendment, the applicant's proposing to increase the number of units from 21 to 42, which will increase the residential gross floor area of the Crystal House 7 and 8 buildings from 45,367 to 88,018 square feet, excluding 1,273 square feet of density exclusion space in the underground parking garage that the applicants are requesting to use for tenant storage. The applicant is also proposing to change the building height by 1 story or 12 feet to incorporate a 3rd story to each unit, which includes a loft and a roof terrace. These units will have a basement garage with 2 parking spaces per unit, 1 being compact and 1 standard. The applicant's proposing to reduce the number of spaces by 10 and increase the compact parking ratio to 50% compact for these buildings. The proposed ratio for the site would be 0.6. But the compact ratio for the entire site of Crystal Houses as a whole would be under 15% as required by the conditions of the site plan. These parking ratios are in conformance with the county's guidelines set in the off-street residential parking guidelines for multifamily residential buildings within metro areas. The applicant's proposing 24 bike parking spaces, which is an increase of 2 from the previous approval, and they're reducing the number of transformers from 5 to a 3-phase transformer for each building. So for a total of 3, and then they're going to relocate them closer to each building and allow for some more screening from the public view. This shows the approved and existing site plan, which highlights the change in design of units from front-facing units to back-to-back units, with some facing an internal courtyard on the east and some facing west towards South Fern Street. There's also a slight change in the garage entrance of Crystal House 7 from the rear of the building to the side of the building parallel with Fern Street. Through this proposal, the applicant has increased the unit count, which increased the size of the ground floor to maximize the buildable area on top of the garage, whereas before there were 3 rows of 7 units on top of a garage with a rear deck. There are now double the number of units, and they've split them in half, with each row of 7 now becoming a row of 14, which led to an increase of the ground floor GFA by about 41%. The applicant's proposing to redesign the garage layout to reduce the number of parking spaces and reconfigure access. The blue stars on this slide show the garage entrances. The garage access was previously in the rear corner of Crystal House 7. It's now on the end of both of the Crystal House 7 and 8 buildings, with stairs leading up to each individual unit from the garage. Relocating this access will allow each townhouse to maintain independent parking on each lot, with the proposed central drive aisle through the building, separating the rear and front lots. The applicant's not proposing any ADA spaces since there are no accessible units, and the buildings do not have elevators, therefore they're not accessible. The approved parking ratio for the site, the approved parking count for Crystal House 7 and 8 is 94 spaces for 21 units, and now they're proposing 84 spaces for 42 units, resulting in 2 spaces per individual unit, as I mentioned, with 1 standard space and 1 compact space per unit. So now they're proposing a parking ratio of 0.6. This is the approved and proposed landscape plan. The applicant has changed the design of the area between Crystal House 7, 8A and 8B, shown in blue here, and the location of the transformers are shown in yellow. The applicant's also proposing a courtyard on the east side of the Crystal House 7 building with a staircase up to 18th Street, and that's shown in green here. This is that view of the new courtyard towards the street that's between Crystal House 7 and Crystal House 6. This shows the approved South Fern Street, which is the west facade, with the on the left with the proposed facade shown on the right. They're very similar, but you can see the change in number of stories. Revisions to the facade include changing the color of brick, metal panel, architectural stone, aluminum window, and metal accents, as well as proposing changes to the approved materials, including corrugated metal and perforated metal to cementitious siding and dark metal roof. Building 1 is shown on the top of the slide here. These are the Crystal House 7 elevations. So on the top is the South Fern Street side, and the bottom is the internal side of the building near the courtyard. You'll notice there's 1 additional story for each, so the building height is changing by 12 feet. And then these are the elevations for Crystal House 8, again with elevation 1 showing South Fern Street on the west side of the building, and elevation 3 is the internal side of the site. So now I will turn it over to Matt Matuzik, who will give a brief staff presentation on the zoning ordinance amendment.
Hey, everybody, good evening. And I promise to be brief. Some of you, I think, have seen this material before, but this is an opportunity to kind of step back a little bit beyond just this site and really evaluate the topography that exists in Crystal City, particularly on its western edge as it crosses Richmond Highway between Eads and Fern, and combine that information with the fact that we have several very large properties on that western edge, many of whom are going to have a combination of existing buildings and future buildings that might be introduced, as is happening with Crystal Houses. Something interesting in this review that we were not really evaluating back in 2019 is that when topography changes are present and when we're dealing with large sites that will have multiple buildings, there may come a point where the average site elevation that's calculated only once for these large properties begins to create challenges for us to still achieve that previously established vision of height and massing for the entire block. And this was something that we were not anticipating previously because the form that was submitted was a multifamily building rather than individual townhouse applications like we're seeing now. So that issue really was not here 5 years ago. But now that we have individual buildings, all of which require their own calculations, we're beginning to recognize that when topography is present, we may be running into a challenge of achieving what the sector plan envisioned was a 3-story form of development along its western edge. So you can see here the heights map that's in the Crystal City sector plan and the CO Crystal City zoning ordinance. And that same information, if we go to the next slide and zoom back into Crystal Houses, begins to look at what everybody is expecting as a form of development along Fern Street, but one that, because of this large site, is actually measured as 46 feet, as you can see on the red on the left side, purely because Crystal Houses has one single calculation from which every building is measured. Even though that same proposal, as experienced on Fern Street by pedestrians, still feels like it's meeting the vision that was prescribed in the Crystal City sector plan of 35 feet. So we spent some time over the summer to kind of analyze this and figure out what can we do, partially to solve this issue, but also keep in mind that this may not be the last time we're experiencing this, as future sites might come in. So on the last slide I'm going to cover is our proposed resolution, where rather than, I think, making any substantive changes, we're simply going to look at that same heights map that exists in the sector plan and the CO Crystal City zoning district and indicate that on that very western edge, which is also primarily reserved for residential form of development, you can either do 35 feet, which is always envisioned, or 3 stories, whichever is greater. And this way, whether you have topography or not, we are still achieving that same prescribed form of development that was identified by the community and staff and consultants when the sector plan was first drafted. So we just wanted to highlight that and indicate that that would apply anywhere on that western edge so that this site and others can benefit from the additional analysis that took place this year. All right, I'll pass it back to Emma.
Thanks, Matt. And then this is our final slide, just a little bit of the time frame here. We had a community meeting on September 5th. This was just an informational meeting, and we went over really the same things that we're going to go over today, but we'll have more opportunity for discussion today. So now we're at the SPRC meeting, and then next we'll be taking this to Planning Commission and the County Board. So with that, I'll turn it over to the applicant for a presentation.
Sure. I'll very, very briefly introduce this. We did personal introductions, but Jack and Jack here from EYA are going to give our presentation, overview of the entire development. We do have our entire design team available remote, and they'll be able to help with questions. And we have a number of additional backup slides, et cetera, things that we can explain in more detail as there are questions during discussion. So really looking forward to a great discussion tonight. I don't want to waste any more time. Let's go.
Great. Thank you, Nick. Thank you all for being here. I'm Jack Lester with EYA. I'm joined by Jack. Jack's actually a better presenter, but I talk faster, so I'm going to lead us, but he will step in when I missed something. So EYA, I'll give a minute about that. We are a 34-year-old company. We're locally based. We're 100 people. We focus exclusively on development within this region, kind of inside the Beltway. We think the way we think about it. We take on 2 to 3 projects a year, and we put all of our effort into making those successful for our future home buyers, for the communities in which we build. One note today, we were recognized for the 3rd time nationally, the industry's highest award for affordable and workforce housing, the ULI Jack Kemp Award for excellence in affordable housing. So we're super psyched to learn that today. I want to thank you. I want to start where Emma, you left off. You talked a lot about the 2019 plan, and that's where we picked this up about 18 months ago. And working with Emma and her team and community, we think we've made a lot of improvements. I'm going to tick them off. It's a pretty long list, but we'll see if we can. So we're providing more housing. We're providing more smaller homes at more attainable pricing. Again, this is compared to the 2019. We have highly designed public spaces, and we're going to show you some renderings of those. We have exceptional architecture and high quality materials. One of the things that Emma touched on is rather than this just being two-sided, where we've got an attractive front and an ugly kind of back, we've got attractive architecture all 4 sides. We are employing sustainable building practices. This will be we made a commitment this year to do all of our new home communities all electric. This will be probably the 4th one that we've committed to. We will employ best practices in stormwater management. We're doubling the number of dedicated residence spaces, more bike parking, as Emma mentioned, better pedestrian connectivity. We'll touch on that. More tree canopy. We're working with the community in 5 or 6 community meetings. We've added dedicated short-term internal parking spaces for drop-off and pickup. We are going to commit to private trash hauling, so the trash can management is attractive and well-maintained and not scattered about. And importantly, we've created more land value for the county to help support their mission of more affordable housing. So let's go through the slides. Some of the details about the project at a high level. We expect to close in Q1 of 26, close on the land with all of our permits in hand. Because this is only 42 units, we expect within 2 years to be completely built and settled out. And that's probably plus or minus 6 months. Next slide, again, just some high-level details. We talked about it, 42 homes. All of the interiors are essentially identical, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. As I mentioned, 2 spaces per unit, so 84 visitor and resident spaces and 24 bike spaces. This is illustrative of that site plan. You've got buildings 8A and B on the left and 7, and I'm going to walk you through some images of those public spaces. Let's go to the next slide. This is one that Emma shared. This is a back-to-back unit. It's not a typical unit, so it takes a little orientation here to get it right. The R is on top, it just designates roof. The T is the roof terrace. And that dark line running between those, that is a common wall separating the front unit to the internally facing unit.
Can we just go back? So what the other purpose of this slide is that you'll see a red dashed line around the building footprint. This is to show you how very similar the footprint is from the prior approval to current. And if anything, on the left to right dimension, we're a little bit smaller. On the top to bottom dimension, you can see it there. We're just a little bit bigger. So we just wanted to let you know we largely stayed within the old footprint coverage there.
And we have met that, but we've maintained that front property line and are meeting the county required sidewalk and landscape. This is one of our public spaces. We're going to walk through 3. This is our primary one, if you will. This connects. This is the mid-block connection from the neighborhood on the other side Fern Street through our development and getting all the way through to the other side. You can see here we've got stairs and then 2 accessible routes that wind through what we're really pleased about the landscape architecture design that we've developed here. The next one is at grade, as if you're standing there kind of looking up and seeing how we're addressing the grade with Fern Street up high, walking down through the site.
So one of the things the prior application in our mind didn't do was really get into the detail, specifically on the grading and the landscape design. We really, with our team, really try to make sure what you're seeing on the screen is going to happen instead of just a placeholder for future work. This is true. We've really put a lot of thought into the grading and the landscape architecture in there.
You're going to want to touch on this as well, but this is a space that was just created. This didn't exist in the original plan because this was the back of the garage of those units. So from an area that was where you saw a garage, now we have a lawn area for residents and neighbors to enjoy. We've done a lot of work here on the wall and the rail to minimize that impact. We think this has turned out well.
Yeah, and it's front doors. This used to be a dead space because there was no activation with front doors, and now we have front doors on this part.
Next one is if you're standing up on 18th Street looking down, again, what that was this ugly dead space, and now we've got a really attractive open space for folks to enjoy.
We're talking to the county about that railing there. The prior application had a more solid, very opaque wall there so that you couldn't see down in there because it was back of garage and all that. But now that we have a railing, we took an opportunity, let's make it an art railing. Let's make it an ornamental railing and really kind of dress it up, this as well as the next part that you'll see.
This is what we call the hyphen space. This is between the 2 units. There is garage beneath that. But again, really high design, high-end materials, just a really attractive space for folks to navigate through the site. These are all will have public access available, but they will be maintained by the HOA. And the architecture, you take this.
The architecture, we appreciated what was in the prior approval. We actually kind of liked it, and we thought it would fit. So all we did was kind of change the facades and some of the articulation to match our new floor plans. And then we also held the old color scheme and material palettes, but then we loudly heard through the community, maybe that's just too dark. Loudly. I'm looking at you, Pam. But we said, okay, we agree with you. We're pretty good at listening and trying to make changes. So we like where we are today, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
And this is a plan, sorry, Jack, to just show you how the building works. There's a little bit of confusion. You have a common drive aisle, and then each homeowner has their own individual parking space. There's an overhead door on the end of the drive aisle. Each parking space does not have another overhead door, but you pull into your parking space. And then as soon as you hit that door, which we'll show you in a second on another slide, you are now within your own unit. So dedicated parking underneath every single unit footprint. And this is the example of what Jack was saying, what you see on the spine, it's kind of like an egg crate. That's how the mirroring works, both side to side and front to back. And then you see on the right-hand side, those are the 2 parking spaces blowing up. And then as soon as you go in that door there, you're now in your unit. And on that park area that we showed you, that's where that front door is in that little space right there. So again, you come into your foyer and then you immediately go up and you see a living, dining, kitchen level, a master bedroom level on the 2nd floor, and then 2 bedrooms and a full bath on the next floor with a roof terrace. The one on the left is just the roof plan. But part of the reason for the extra height is we need that loft level because that's 2 bedrooms plus the roof terrace. All electric. What else can you say? And we thought on the transformers, we felt like they were in those public spaces, they were in those green spaces and those park spaces, and we now have them tucked away down on the ramp on the garage. There's a cutout into the grade with a retaining wall, so they won't be visible from Fern Street or 18th Street anymore. So put a little bit of work into that. 10 minutes.
Well done. Okay, we've had a couple extra SPRC members join us since we started. So can we do a quick introduction?
Sure, Karen Gavato, Planning Commission.
Thank you. And then we have somebody, are you a member of the public?
I'm a Crystal House resident, yes.
Okay, great.
Nice.
And did anyone join us virtually? Anyone else?
There's one that jumped on this.
We have Bernie Byrne who joined.
Okay, perfect. So I did want to ask staff before we get into our conversation, are there any elements of this project that you feel like you still want to see some progress on, or anything you feel like isn't quite right yet?
I think the only things that came up at the community meeting last time were were garbage disposal and pickup and drop off. And I think those are the two outstanding things that we'd like to hear about today.
Okay, great. So then the conversations with the commission, tonight we can talk about site elements, including but not limited to landscaping, parking, including bike parking, building elements, including accessibility, building height, condition changes, including but not limited to phasing, LEED certification, affordable housing commitment, and then a kind of an other bucket. ZOCO has heard this, the zoning change in July, but we can kind of have a brief summary. Leo, I'm going to call on you. Do you want to make any comments?
No, I gave you the thumbs up. We did talk about it, and we felt fairly comfortable with the height definition that staff brought to the meeting, and it made sense. And I think, I'm actually a little bit eager to hear some of the neighbors and what they think, but generally speaking, it was well received.
Okay, great. So then let's start off with site elements. You can have clarifying questions or just comments. I usually like to do a round robin. So Karen, why don't I start off with you? Any site elements?
Not at the moment.
Okay, great. Nick?
I think so, no site elements.
Okay.
And where does like affordable housing go? There's an accessible unit. Is that here? There's no accessible.
You could do it now.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, if we do that, then we can go back.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I have accessibility and building elements. So let's see. Okay, four. Okay, yeah.
And affordable housing for that as well. For later on.
I had affordable housing under condition changes.
Okay, all right, so let's just keep going.
Yes, okay. So like landscaping, parking, the site, like kind of site design. Tony.
Oh, so accessible is not included in that?
We'll do it later.
I will be very clear when we're going to talk about accessibility and affordable housing.
No, other than I actually kind of like the older color palette. Yeah, Pam can take this one, but I just want to put it out there, my dissenting opinion on that.
Wow.
That's all I got.
I'm going to dissent with him. My only comment was going to be how much I appreciate the new color palette.
Thank you.
But no parking, transportation.
So I definitely appreciate the increase in biking and then noted on the parking spaces. I don't really have any necessary questions just yet about the parking or transportation oriented options. I will have some when it comes to accessibility though.
On the colors, if there's a buyer in the room, we can great weight on that.
You thought about pink.
On bike parking, I was impressed with the number of spaces that you had at 21 units, and it's only gone up 2 spaces when you double the number. Is there some complication that prevents a larger increase in the number of bike spaces?
I think the answer, Jack, is the footprint essentially stayed the same. So while we've got double the units, where they would go in the garage, it's that hyphen area between 8A and 8B where we're able to fit the bike parking, but the footprint didn't change, and that's what is the constraint on.
I will add that we have 2 spaces per unit. One of them is compact, and anyone who's buying these units, if they have 1 car and bikes, they absolutely use that space for bikes as they so choose. So that is kind of just garage space that belongs to the tenant. It's suitable for 2 parking spaces for vehicles, but it could be electric bikes, it could be other things.
And I think this is going to come up maybe with the parking as well too. I mentioned, if you don't mind, I mentioned that some of the details in the prior application were really not thought through. When I look at the garage plan, I don't see the bike. I don't know where they were going to be. So to me, that means it was exterior. And our hyphen it's completely dedicated for that type of use.
Protected.
And protected and undercover. So that is a big deal. I'm also, because parking may come up, going to say, in my professional architectural experience of 40 years, you weren't going to get this number of parking spaces. Okay. There are floor plans. They didn't show you floor plans. They showed you footprints and then a stair. Their garage height varies anywhere from 11 feet to about 15 feet. The stair stays the same on their little floor plan diagram. It's not possible. And either you're going to take living space upstairs out, because this is a concrete deck. In order to get the longer stair, you're going to have to do a very expensive job of cutting into the floor plan with that hole for the stair, or you're going to take a parking space on the ground. So we can believe ours. We have built this product in a different jurisdictions in Alexandria. We know this works. We know this is real. I question whether you were going to get some of what because they just didn't get there yet. They didn't think through the details.
For context, because I was the lead attorney on that in 2019, and a lot of you were not here in 2019 when we got that approved. But as we went through the SPRC process on Crystal houses back then, we had CH 3, 4, 5, and 6. We never came to the 7 and 8 initially. Those were added after SPRC conversations and conversations with staff where they really wanted the full site planned out and the entire frontage upgraded to the new standard for CO Crystal City. And so my client at the time, Roseland, subsequently sold the property, went to WHC, who donated to the county. They looked at adding this stuff, but it was to the level of detail necessary just to get the approval. And they were not really thinking through all the engineering for how to build it. And honestly, I think I'm suspicious throwing my old client under the bus a little bit, but I do think that they intended at the time to sell it. Often don't tell me these things, but they didn't engineer it fully. The other buildings were more engineered because they had gone in with a longer design process to come up with, what was going to happen and where. But CH7 and 8 were not thought through in that level. And so as our team really dug in, because we're going to build this immediately. I mean, this whole site has to be built out. There's a very important contract with the county about delivering all the affordable housing on this site. And this is helping cross-subsidize that. So this is happening. And so this team has really dug in and done the work. And what we're presenting is absolutely what will be shovel ready, hopefully, very soon. So.
Thank you. I see Jim has his hand raised. Well,
okay.
I didn't know, Jim, did you have something about this particular topic that you wanted to weigh in, or do you want to wait until you're called on for the round robin?
Yeah, I was just going to say this. I had shared the original SPRCs for Crystal houses, and what is being proposed here does not do any violence to what was originally proposed or envisioned for that site. I think it makes a lot of sense. The two pass-throughs between the sticks from Fern Street are actually way better than and what we had hoped it would be to make this make this site permeable. The addition of the stairs on 18th is really, really good. Again, it gives an easier way to get to the subway. And I agree with the applicant wanting to have, rather than a wall, have the fence, because that allows people to see in, which increases safety and security. So I think all around, and the height is not a problem. I agree with Matt's solution for this. It will not be any higher on Fern Street than the houses across the street, or what the houses can be across the street. So all of that, I think, fits very well with what was originally envisioned for this site from the original site plan review committee meetings. So that's basically, and parking is fine. Again, it fits with what we were looking at all along. So the whole package really is, I think, very, very consistent with what we had promised the neighborhood. I don't think this really changes anything substantively. So that's my 2 cents. Thanks.
Feel free to call us whenever.
Okay. Peter, did you have any other questions?
Yeah, just quickly, I've been on the colors issue. I've been on the planning commission for 15 months. This is the first building that I've seen with the new color scheme where I looked at it and said, this is an attractive building. So thank And with the increase in height, there looks like there's a setback on the third floor. How big is that setback?
10 to 12 feet. So
It's fine.
I don't have any comments on the site. I think Commissioner Lantelmi sort of took a lot of what I was going to say, which it feels like it's, as far as the site, you know, and the footprint of the building, it's remained fairly consistent. So I don't feel like there is too much to hash on that one. I will have some comments about colors later on.
Uh-oh.
I think in the original plan in 19, they, to Nick's point, they really, it was kind of a throwaway part of the plan. And I think that one good thing about it, I like many of the changes, and I have to credit my neighbors for a lot of that. Did a lot of virtual meetings to get to this point. But I think it's also a couple of things. It's good that part of the site, despite the fact that it's primarily seen as an affordable site, is for purchase. There's a lot of people in the neighborhood who think that we build too many rentals and not enough purchase. So that goes to this. I do like all of the landscaping elements and of course the color. And one of the exhibits that we saw in one of our presentations illustrated what Jim was just saying about the fact that the height, because of the topography, which has triggered this ordinance change, when you do a section that shows the height of this project and the height across the street in the neighborhood, it's virtually identical. So, and the color really came from the neighborhood saying black is not beautiful on this site. So, but I think all in all, it's a very good project now.
So if we're talking about parking, is this the place to ask about EV parking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about EV parking.
Well, we offer wire for EV within the homes.
So each person would opt.
Yeah, we wire for it and then they choose to.
Yeah, we call it a rough end. And because, the actual, I'm sorry?
EV ready.
Yes, ma'am. And because, the actual equipment varies per the automobile, it's kind of hard for us to sell the equipment. And so we offer the rough ends. And
These units can only go to Tesla. These units can go to Leap.
right, right. But we provide the power, the electricity capability, the panel sizes, and then the conduit in order to get there, right? So each person, they could have two. If they have two cars, they could have one in their place. It's all up to them.
Just as an aside, it's become a real issue with power companies because they don't know how to calculate the load. And so we are fighting, hey, we're a site that might have needed 10 transformers. They're saying, we'll put 20. And we're saying, well, the EVs will cut off when the car is charged and people don't use them. So right now we're in this place with Pepco and Dominion and trying to sort it through.
Everyone's fighting Dominion on something, but particularly the number of transformers or the capacity they would want has a real impact on urban design too, and because it's more, transformer that has to take up space, and then you get into transformer vault access, especially on larger multi-family buildings. That's even more difficult to do.
We're building transformer parks and trying to put homes in between.
Yeah, I've heard a lot. So you said all electric, so tell me on your categories, we're just talking about what all electric really means, that conditions.
Yeah, I've got conditions, lead, sustainability, so. Yeah.
Going back to the graph where you showed that the footprint of the two had expanded a little bit, but you said it's not by much. Can you tell me what much is?
41%.
Well, no, that's
I can briefly, this has got the expansion of the first floor.
I think, this one's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so the zoning ordinance for the threshold between minor and major amendment refers to the GFA of the first floor rather than the floor plate, the physical floor plate of the building. So in the previous approval, we had a bunch of unenclosed space, like terrace space and stuff like that. But with this design, because they're back-to-back units, is now enclosed. So what we discovered as we dug into this, and Emma dug into it as well, is that The GFA of the first floor went up significantly, over 20%. But if you look at the actual physical presence of the building on the site, the change is slight. So it was, I wouldn't call it a technicality, but it was a legal issue was trimmed there.
Which is why we're having tonight's meeting.
So from the red dotted line to the bottom black line, is that feet?
Yeah, well, so let me say from my left to right, it's probably in the world of about 8 feet. And if you go all the way to the very, very left, you'll see that. So the red line right there, so we are about 8 feet smaller in a left to right dimension. The front to back dimension, like Jack said, Fern Street, we held that line. So the bottom, just eyeballing it, I'm gonna say it's, call it 3 feet, which includes the bay projection on there.
Putting on my Crystal and Pentagon City Commission hat for a second, is there a strategy for using native plants in the landscaping, or is there a strategy behind it?
Go ahead.
I'm gonna say yes. I mean, we have our landscape architect, Dan, on the phone. Dan, native plants, right?
Yes, sir, and pollinators.
Great, thank you.
Milkweed?
Answer
Bernie's question.
How will you field all lanternflies?
My wife and I feel the same way because she's a birder, too, about the pollinators, et cetera. And plants from all of our teams, how important those things are. And Parker Rodriguez's team knows it as well.
And what we try to focus on some of these spaces, these little hyphen parks and the pass-through park, is something that's not going to die off in the wintertime and be ugly at that period of time. So the pollinators kind of help with that, and maybe there's these seasonal bloomings and everything. So that's a primary focus of the team.
I think that's smart. Just anecdotally, that neighborhood in particular, Crystal City, Pentagon City, has seen a couple of developments go in. There wasn't really consideration for a native. And we saw what happened when you put plants from other regions. They're fixing it now. They've learned their lesson.
Jim, I see you have your hand up still. Is that left over from before, or did you want to make another comment?
Oh, I'll take it down, sorry.
No, that's fine. So I actually had the same question that Peter raised about 24 bike spaces is a lot, but compared to what was before, I love to hear that it's covered and protected. What is the size? Bikes are getting bigger. People have cargo bikes. I see more of those. I bought one recently. So can somebody fit a cargo bike? And is there a way to charge an electric bike?
We have 11 racks, which holds 2 bikes apiece, and they're 3x6. So they're the contained. They're not just open where you chain up the rack. They're actually the containers.
Okay.
So there's 11 and it holds 2, and they're 3 foot by 6 foot.
I think for a cargo bike, and certainly for an electric bike, you'd probably be looking at maybe that compact space for some of their garage. Depending on the size of your vehicle, same way that we all use garages, especially if we have older houses around here from the 60s and 70s.
But we have flexibility. If we need a compact and the full size on the, it's like, let's figure out what the standard is and let's put it in there.
Well, actually, if you are going to bring that up with that consideration, I would recommend that you do consider flexing the spaces so there are a couple of spaces for the larger bikes.
We'll go Tony and then.
Okay. So if I'm understanding it right too, so each unit is going to have 2 parking spaces now? So I see what you're saying. Yes, I mean that, and because it's an area that is very close to transit, odds are people are not going to have 2 cars. Typically, we've seen the research on that. A lot of people, the closer you are to the metro, the fewer cars you tend to have. So I can see that as
There is,
plausible.
the buyers, there is a self kind of selection, right?
Yeah.
Don't move into our communities with 3 cars and there's 2 spaces.
Exactly.
These folks, as I understand it, will not have residential parking. So, their options are to park in their dedicated spaces or pay at the meter
right
up front.
And
your second question on plug-in for the bikes.
Oh, yeah. bike charging.
Hadn't even thought about it. Yeah, I'm not sure that's a big deal.
Okay.
It's a great thing.
I mean, a lot of people just unplug their battery and charge it in their house, but do people charge them on site?
I have not seen that. I've actually seen kind of an avoidance of that because of stealing and thievery. Because if you have an old car that has the radio, you pull it out at the end of the night. People do the same thing with bikes.
People will take the battery if you charge it in.
Yeah, those are the words I was looking for.
Okay.
Thank you.
So they generally take it.
Yeah. Everyone I know that has, just anecdotally, everyone I know that has a bike, and I think New York Times was doing kind of that research when as they get more popular, we start to see more theft. Batteries.
Great. Okay, so moving on to building elements.
I just have a quick question, which is, so visitor parking, you're saying there's visitor parking, but is it really just your 2 spaces?
It's just 2 spaces.
For the good of the order, I'll note that if you're having a Christmas party or something, the amount of public parking remaining in Crystal City, that especially is inexpensive overnight and evening hours, et cetera, is there. So people are driving in, there's places to park within, the general vicinity without overloading the streets.
Just a minor note, your presentation had 94 parking spaces.
Those are the conditions which overrule the conditions.
Got
Yeah, we should do that.
You got it.
Plans. We've been fixing all of that as we go through.
So those will be fixed and have been fixed.
So then moving on to building elements, which can include accessibility, building height, or other topics related to the buildings themselves. Robin, Karen?
Yes, so accessibility, can you talk to me a little bit about the decision-making in terms of not making them a little more accessible? And I noticed on your designs, it wasn't just in the unit itself, but also, I know you mentioned the beautiful railing, but obviously, there aren't, it didn't seem to be any ramps. And so I just wanted to understand a little bit about the accessibility and how you came to the decision, and if there's any chance that you would reconsider.
Sure. So,
Jack, can I lead off on the? I'm sorry. Because it's a very important topic. The large pathway, which really is sort of the front door, and that's where the public access is cut through. That's in the sector plan. That is a fully accessible pathway where that ramp.
I'm putting my mouse over the accessible portion. There was even an even better picture that shows the ramp. It's fine.
And so that-
No, that was the other ramp.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
The hyphen area between the buildings is not actually public access. It's an area, though people are certainly welcome to travel through there. But really, the main entrance to the site.
This is a
So that's not a public access east area. The real entrance to the site, the one that's in the sector plan, with the pathway that cuts through, that is absolutely has a ramp that is inviting everybody to use. And that is a totally accessible path all the way through the site. In some other areas where you can enter the site, there's obviously huge topography changes. And we've added some other sort of incidental ways to get in and out of the site that you would all stairs. But ramping in those areas is not.
Those stairs are right there.
Elevators are not either.
So those stairs that you see, those are the stairs in that.
So there's a ramp that goes with
to the
those
left of
stairs?
that, yeah.
Okay.
Can we
Yes,
go
that's
back
the same.
again? So I'll have her again.
You see the stairs next to the white SU right there.
Okay.
So that's the stairs you see on the ground level view, but the ramp is next to it.
Yeah, it wasn't
Are
clear
there
from
two
the.
ramps?
Yes.
And that's at 19th Street.
Fern, that's Fern.
That's Fern.
And it connects with 19th on the other side.
It cuts all the way through, because you go through in front of Crystal House once it's one in the pool, and then you go past through the public park, the center park that's going to be developed, and then you get, and that's sort of the cut through the super block.
And then on the west side, it's a direct crossover to 19th Street. So it aligns with the street.
That's great. The one we don't have a ramp for is that 18th Street stairs to get down to that pocket park. So in our mind, it's a convenience to be able to get into the site, but not a lot of people are necessarily going to use it. It's probably more for the residents to leave and access the metro. If you want to cross through, they're going to use one of the two others, which are fully accessible.
And then I think, Jeff, you wanted to talk about.
So on the buildings, let's talk about the prior approval. My Again, I wasn't involved with the prior approval, but my assumption is, what happens when you assume, is that they went in, their buildings were classified as what's called an R2 use. It's a multifamily use, okay? The zoning uses out here are multiple family dwellings, which before and after, we're also multiple family dwellings. From a building code standpoint, it's an R2 use. R2 requires minimum 2% of accessible units in the building. So it's like no different than an apartment building or a condo building. There's obviously plenty of accessible units in the other multifamily buildings, including the one that maybe we're coming back in front of this group for the other ones down the road that we're going to do, right, CH4. So that's probably why they have the 2 spaces that they had. There is grade from, if you're going to do your best to comply, there is grade from the finished floor level to the sidewalk on the building. Okay. So there was only 2 opportunities to be able to access the unit. We have the same opportunities from a grading standpoint because we didn't change the verticals. But our buildings, we did a lot of work with Shahryar and his group of code enforcement to make these fee simple homes. There's a kind of component for the garage level because it's a common area. But our homes are fee simple, and they are what's called an R3 use, which is a townhome use, which does not have this accessibility requirement. So then it becomes voluntary. And in our mind, the footprints are smaller, the spaces are more compact. In Virginia, the elevator cab size is larger because it has to comply with ANSI. In addition to the Fair Housing Act, they have to comply with ANSI, not ADA. That's a public accommodation with sidewalks and things. So it's a larger cab. And we just felt like the hit on the footprint and the livability of the home wasn't worth it. We also feel like with this multi-story unit and the missing middle goal that we had with this project, we're not going to get empty nesters or move downs into these types of homes. And the demand for the elevators, for the accessible living, the adaptable living just wasn't going to be there. So that's really, the explanation behind it.
I might circle back on that. But
Sure.
I just wanted to get a general understanding.
Well, we'll do a round robin and then.
Building heights.
Building heights, yes.
Okay. Building heights are great. Really appreciate the building heights and particularly all the work the county staff has been doing to make sure that the building heights are in compliance both with the sector plan and also in relation to the neighborhood and maintaining the height of the neighborhood across Fern Street. And I hope that for future projects, the county staff will take that into consideration as well, because that's one of the things that the neighborhood sees as really important. And so I'm really glad to see that height is maintained. And I think it's a great project.
I'm very happy with everything you've done, except that you don't have any. It's not just older people who need it, but there's a large population in our area of working age people. There's a lot of opportunities in our neighborhood for people. And for them to have a place that they can buy is so rare. It's just really important to do this. So I hope that you can do that, or at least find out a way to offer it to people and help them figure out how to do it. I think the site overall is very accessible. I think you've done a great job with it. And you can get into the garages, no problem. I even did that, but you got past. But once you're in the garage, the matter is just getting through your unit. And that should be doable somehow. And maybe if you don't have to build them, just have it as an option and help people with that. Because I think there's a real demand out there. Thank you.
Look at it. We'll look at it. There's a program in Montgomery County that a wonderful lady named Jackie Simon leads to try to bring more accessibility into market rate and affordable homes. And she has a son who was in an accident and in a wheelchair. She's 80 years old as well too. But she came in our office applauding our efforts to do that and trying to ask us how to get it more in the face of builders and developers to be able to provide more accessible. So we believe in it, and we do it in a lot of communities. It's just this footprint, this home design, and this what we think is the target market. It's felt like the compromise on the home but I think we'll go back and
But you think it could be possible for somebody to put an elevator It might be expensive.
It's always a compromise.
You lose parking, right?
It's always a compromise.
Yeah.
Where you put in a 6x6 cab, right?
Yeah,
All of your living spaces are gonna be really compromised.
but if that's what somebody
Probably a house
wants,
that nobody
maybe
wants.
instead of a 3-bedroom home, they want a 2-bedroom home. You know, that's,
Is it 6x6?
it's, the outside is probably 5x6 because the cab is 4x5.
That's huge.
It is. Virginia's a little bit different than a lot of other jurisdictions. That's okay.
Yeah.
Of course we are.
That's okay.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
we- you got it. Elevator.
Yeah, well, I want to second that. I think if there are any kind of opportunities to, even in the internal piece of it, less formal elevators or something like that. I'm not the expert on that, but I'm sure that there is someone who is. And then if not even that, we have committable afforded units. I mean, could there be a sort of potential trade-off with committed accessible units, maybe the other Crystal House buildings? That's something that I just thought of. But I think including some kind of option in this for more accessible housing is something that's important, and we shouldn't overlook that.
There absolutely are accessible units throughout the rest of the development, many of them, and many of them are, almost all of them are so far, very affordable, very low income levels. So there's absolutely for, rent, a lot of
Right.
accessible space.
And that's not perfect.
It's the purchase and that, I think Jack's really stated it, but it's very difficult to fit that elevator in and still have a unit that we think anybody would want to buy.
Yeah, and so I mean, and I know that there's the committed accessible ones exist, but there needs to be that increase because we're building more units here with 7 and 8, and it needs to match
The ratio.
the ratio exactly.
Yeah, if I can jump in here, just stay on topic. Do you mind if I go ahead? So I think Nick, you are meeting the letter of the law, right? But I think if we add an accessible unit to this, it's a little bit more in the spirit, right? Where if someone wants to have a different unit, right, namely the street facing unit, they will have one available to them. To that end, I think architecturally speaking, perhaps 1 or 2 units could be horizontal instead of the vertical stack. So like in the center 4, let's say, you create horizontal units, you put a residential sized elevator just for those 2 units. You can get pretty much any custom size that you think would make sense on that unit. And then, you sell it as an ADA unit. And I think the community, and as we were hearing, there are people that are really interested in that. And to be able to have a street level, not just an apartment, not just a rental, I think it would be a great, great gesture, and I think design wise, there's a lot of Dutch housing where they have the sort of Tetris where apartments fit in within each other that are slightly different shape instead of just the vertical. And I understand the efficiency of the vertical and totally that makes sense. But I think, 1 or 2 where you just create horizontal units that have street access, you put a residential sized elevator that just serves that one residence instead of, having to have the code compliant 5x4 cab and stuff like that. Where then, and I understand, it's more complexity, it's a little bit more design, it's a little bit more cost associated with it. But I think the community would view that very positively.
Just to respond there a little bit, the cab size would still be the same because it doesn't matter. The idea of an elevator in a townhouse is once you put the elevator in there, it's no longer multi-story. It's the same as a flat. So this, like a single level living. So that's the concept. What that would do, the challenge with that is it puts us into a condo arrangement and not fee simple. And there are challenges with doing that. You're having flat over flat over flat. So it's a different level of ownership and a different level of complication.
For sure, but that's what I mean. You can have like 4 units in the center that would have a slightly different paradigm. And again, it does create more work. I'm not denying that. But I think, again, the benefit. The second thing on the cab, if it's a residential cab that's serving 1 unit, literally you can do a custom size. I'm sorry, I'm actually just working on that today. And we're literally doing that. So you can, right? It's a residential, you're serving 1 unit. The code in Virginia really just says whatever size you think makes sense for you. And the cab company doesn't even have a standard size catalog at that level. Like I'm talking about literally a 1-story or 2-story, right? So it would either connect the garage, or if we did this horizontal unit design, it would just connect you to the 2nd floor, right? So I just think, and this is super fun and it's super great design. I'm not trying to give you a hard time. I just really want to impress on you that, you know, with a little bit of effort, there is a solution that would be available to the team.
I think it'd be a tremendous amount of effort. This is a product that doesn't exist. We'd be making it from scratch. So a couple of things off the top, you can deal with the design. It would take us back many months. The value that part of what the goal here, the county's goal, our partner in this, is to create value to support the hundreds and hundreds of affordable units that are going on the site. This would be an enormous erosion of that value, which would be reflected in the land. So the millions of dollars, I don't want to put a number on it. There's a huge number that's going to be, that's going to harm the land value, which will not be there to support all the other affordable housing.
Well, and if I may, yeah, well, so I'll just say, I think Leo's provided some really helpful information with this specific project that he's working on. You guys could take it, think about it, see if it's, or that you seem very genuine, like you want to do good by the community. So if, you know, tonight while you're sleeping, right before bed, you're like, you know, maybe we could make this work. You know, Leo can reach out and give you some information about the project he's working on and how he's getting those elevators fit.
Just really quickly, I just wanted to say, I understand that it would push you back quite a bit in your timeline.
And I'd be talking to Chris and Sarah and saying, hey, you know, the number we agreed on, it's substantially less than that.
The only thing I will say is that one of your properties, the Brownstones of Westmart, one of the things you do offer is the optional private elevator per plan. You also do the loft level rooftop terrace, the 2 parking garage. And granted, you know, it's a completely different, but obviously there's
much bigger. Those are much bigger homes than these.
Yeah, so there's some
So
sort
we
of
could
precedent
build
that could
the
be.
3,000 square foot home, but then we can't achieve an affordable. So these are 2,000. We can't achieve an attainable price, right? So yes, we can do a 3,000 square foot home and sell it for $2.5 million. That was, we chose not to go in that direction.
These are in less.
1.7s.
Yeah, I just want to highlight one point. I wasn't suggesting that all of them switch to this. I was suggesting like 2 units.
I hear you.
Or 3 units, you know, where you just do a little bit of a design at the center. You wouldn't be able to read the difference from the outside practically. So you would maintain a lot of the efficiencies. And I think it wouldn't be quite as drastic of an effort. You know, it would affect it. I'm not saying it wouldn't.
I will say, you know, the other thing, and Jack mentioned it, we worked for 6 months to ensure that this would not be a condominium. I mean, it's a line we cannot cross. We will not do condos in Virginia. It was a threshold issue for us.
Okay, and well, so I guess for tonight, like, you know, take in what we're saying, see how it might be able to impact this design, future designs. Overall, we're really liking the project, but I think all of us would like to see the accessibility if it's possible. You'll probably hear similar conversations at Planning Commission, so, you know.
So I was gonna say, Leo, you can email me anything you want to, for me to pass on to the team, and we can follow up with the Planning Commission. And at a minimum, we'll look at it again, and we'll have, again, also answer.
Okay, perfect. Judy, you're welcome to chime in or.
Well, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Yep. It did bring up a couple of questions for me about the accessibility, because that was the point that I was going to bring up as well. Just from a transportation perspective, people get around in all ways. And I know that you guys are aware of that, but I just want to add another tally to we would love for more accessible housing. 12% of Virginians have some form of disability, and it's so important to make sure that they have as many opportunities to buy housing in places like Crystal City and Arlington in general. But I did have a question, just for my own edification. Can you walk me through why just having, and I don't want to say just as in like it won't take a lot of work, because I want to make sure I recognize that, but why does having 2 units out of all the units as accessible change it to condos? Is it like just 1 unit having an elevator makes everything a condo?
No, it's the flat. It's the flats arrangement.
We're living over other units.
Oh.
Yeah, you can't.
Oh.
We have
simple.
Our homes have what's called a party wall,
Yeah.
which is a firewall on a property line, like an egg crate those are property lines.
Okay, so we're
Townhouse.
talking townhouse. So like the example there was townhouse, flat.
The flats are condos.
Okay, then, and I recognize that this will adjust planning, and I don't want to understate that I know that that's going to take a lot of work, and I've watched as you all have done work and community engagement and appreciate it. But if there is a bump out to one of the buildings in the non-public pathway for a space for elevators, even having 2 units out of them, or even 1 that is accessible, would mean that someone who doesn't have, frankly, the opportunity to buy affordable in that neighborhood may have an opportunity, and they're not limited by their disability.
I mean, I'm going to tell you, we're going to go back and look at it.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
We're not going to entertain the flat idea because of the condos, but
Sounds
we'll
good.
take a look at these home designs and see what the impact of an elevator means.
Yeah.
I'd love to see what, Leo, what you're saying about this cab size, because in my 34 years of doing this, I mean, there's just,
Please email me.
yeah.
I want to get some.
I mean, you're not going to get it smaller than a 3x4, which is a 5x6 shaft anyway. But there's also this concept, I'm sure you're aware of universal design. It's not necessarily elevator. Universal design, there are a lot of other home features that you have to really study hard in order to see what you're doing there. So this 12%, not everybody's in a wheelchair. There are people with other disabilities that maybe there's
That's a
something
very
going
fair
on there.
point.
So
Yeah, if you make one hitting different tiers of accessibility,
Right.
for me, ideal world is elevator, but it's also space, it's also adjustments.
and features.
Real quick, and then I want to get back to the round robin stuff.
Can you do the chairs that go, have a railing, is that doable?
They just eat up a lot of space. I mean,
Would that be
and it's not about the effort or the cost, really. It's not. I mean, the condo thing is a value, you know, but it's not about that. It's just the livability of the end product. And in our mind, somebody in a wheelchair does not want compact or 3-story, 4 if you count the garage, lifestyle in our experience. Most of our projects, all but one that you're looking up, have the optional elevator component to it. Many of these are higher price points and move down scenarios. But we sell a lot of elevators, so we get it. We get the appreciation. It's just this particular home design.
And what Pam is asking, there's nothing that would stop somebody from putting one of those lifts that runs up the stairwell.
No, right, sure.
And you could help them design that a little bit.
I cannot, though.
Refer them to somebody.
There would be a contractor that would love to.
We can
these guys
identify
do
a
this for a living.
contractor, we can make sure it's wired, so that there's
I mean, they fold
electricity
up.
there.
Yeah. So unless you're actually using it, they don't take up that much space.
I'm going to go to Peter.
This round.
Okay, Leo?
I was just gonna say, universal design is great, so I really appreciate you guys keeping that on your.
It was your idea.
No, I'm not gonna take credit for that. So that's good to hear. I think you have a really good attorney here. He can do like property lines that are horizontal on the floor slab. So
It's our buddy Shariar that,
Yeah, I don't want to waste time getting into it, but the building official and our transactional attorneys and the calls, you can imagine the low rate total of everybody involved. There's a lot of effort to find a way to make this a multifamily zoning perspective product, but a feasible town. And we had to do a complex regime, way that the condo or the actual garage relates to everything above, et cetera. It was very delicate, and we weren't sure it would actually work.
yeah, and I strongly support that. I think that is a noble goal and one that we ought to go after, because I think, the impact on the neighborhoods and people that own always have a little bit more sort of community participation. So I totally agree, but again, I just, maybe there's a little bit of a sweet spot that we can get there. And I'm going to stop pushing. I think you hear me, anything you do, it would be most welcome.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to look at the design. We're going to show you maybe even what it looks like. And then we'll look at that as maybe an option that could be offered or not be. Work with the team about what that would do to the livability of the unit, et cetera, desirability, all that. We'll look at it and have more to show you at a time.
Thank you.
I do think that we hopefully set a good precedent with this, multifamily from a zoning perspective, pretty simple townhome above is a missing middle product that can be successful in Arlington, especially the garage below, because you can't build townhomes on every business, but you can do this one. So that was
I'm gonna move us on. Good thing is you have 7 planning commissioners that are part of the conversation tonight. So we can have this conversation again in a month when we talk about it.
That's not good news for the team here.
We'll be well prepared for it too.
Thank you. Judy? Cindy?
No.
Okay. Jim, and tell me. Oh, sorry, Nia?
So the townhouses will be market rate.
Yes.
So if that townhouse were built today, by today's standards, what would the cost be?
What would we sell it for?
Yeah, what would you sell?
Of course, we don't know, right? The market is the market. And so that's what we do. We go into these things not knowing where we're going to be. But of course, we run models. So we think right now the price on average, we literally priced each of the 42 homes thinking, well, some are premiums, some maybe right up against the pool, might be a discount. But I think, Angelina, the number came to like 1.1 million, we felt, on average. So maybe somewhere at 1.2.
That's cheap for this
That's
neighborhood.
sad. That's sad.
Yeah, relatively, it's not
That-
bad.
That's affordable.
While I do appreciate that, we do have some options instead of rentals because there's way too many rentals. People are getting closed out. But again, 1.1 does close people out.
I
Yes, it does.
totally agree that, it's to say that that's attainable is, you joke on that, but in all
No, but
honesty,
I appreciate the fact that you're honest.
Well, the other issue is too, the land seller in effect is the county, right? So there is they get the value in land based on what we believe we can sell these.
And then, is this where we talk about affordable housing? Have we talked about that? Tinley, is this where we talk about?
Condition changes will be next. So.
Okay, thank you.
And Jim? Do you have anything you wanted to say about?
Well, I have nothing further to add from what I said before.
Okay, thank you. Condition.
Sorry, can I go back to building elements? I did leave some things off my list, and this is, the window where I participate. So, admittedly, I understand that the previous team sort of just made a pretty drawing and then they ran away. With that in mind, I do think that just on that upper story, the previous iteration had a little bit more of a breakup. So here's where I'm at. You're trying to create this sort of differentiation between the individual units and kind of break down the mass, right? And so that gray bar at the top is really ruining that. It's almost like you're seeing behind the curtain where the little guy is pulling the levers. And so anything that you can do to break up that upper story, be it color, material shift, or some sort of and you have it, you've got the tiny little vertical sort of cementitious trim, so I think you're sort of aware of it. I think it just needs a little bit more oomph on that. And unlike Pam, I find the previous palette quite lovely, but that's not to say that I don't like this one also. Sorry, Tony. So I think they're good. And I think where I come down on the color palette is the lighter color will reflect a little bit more light and we'll have a little less heat gain. So perhaps that's a good reason to go with the slightly lighter.
It was a better match to the neighborhood and the existing Crystal House.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, given the sort of context, it might be a little. But yeah, and then finally, I think from an environment comment, I think the fenestration is really good. And I say this to every project that comes in front of the commission. Less fenestration is a little bit better for energy conservancy. I don't assume you're putting triple glazed, thermal broken, blah, 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 blah. So, and then the other thing was just from a design perspective, the windows are really large, which I know are nice, but it's getting almost into a storefront sort of proportion. So I don't know if you kind of want to take a look at that, save a little money, put smaller windows, get a little energy efficiency going, make it a little bit more residential, sort of in palette. Just my 2 cents.
Thank you. My only comment or question about building elements And this picture is great. So I see a lot of biophilia on the roof deck. Is that like a permanent planter that is up there that would encourage people to use it? Are you putting the trees there, or it's just, you know, if somebody buys a potted plant?
It's consistent with what our homeowners do. We have a pretty strict HOA, not only in the garages, by the way, where we restrict storing stuff in the garage, which makes people park outside. You know, we're pretty tight about that. We do offer awning rough-ins. We got out of the business of installing them because there was too much variety and too much warranty and damage issues and all that, but we do offer the rough-ins. So most of the time people do where the wiring and the structural is there for somebody to provide their own retractable awning.
Oh, I see.
You know, like a sunshade kind of thing. The roofs are designed, the roof terraces are designed to handle loads like planters and all that. I would say most of our people do end up greening those up. Sometimes there's umbrellas. If anybody has heartburns on those, we can talk about those. The awnings do a good job of that kind of thing. But, you know, we sort of leave it up to our homeowners to do what they want to do.
Okay, so everything kind of above on the roofs is not part of the actual plan, but the landscaping on ground level will be all provided by you.
And maintained by us. Right.
Okay, then the next category, condition changes, relevant topics, review phasing, timeline, sustainability, affordable housing commitment, or other topics related to conditions or community benefits.
So before there's a question, sustainability, we are Earthcraft multifamily gold level. So the program is Earthcraft multifamily at the gold level, which is consistent with the conditions in there. So in case there was a question. I'm sorry?
Is there a platinum level?
I don't
So
know.
gold might be the best.
I think platinum could be something that's not achievable
On this
on
kind
a
of
wood.
property.
Right.
Right, right. So you're not using LEED because it doesn't really apply to this kind of house.
This is a better program in our mind for this type of building.
Okay.
I will say
That's
that
gold.
they are requesting the ability to use either LEED or Earthcraft, but that's for the whole Crystal Houses site. Because some buildings, they want to use LEED, some they want to use Earthcraft.
Yeah, and that specifically came up because CH3 got financing a little bit quicker than everyone had thought, and they are closing early, starting construction earlier, and to do Earthcraft certification on CH3 would actually take too long because there's a delay with Earthcraft certification. So APA is pivoting quickly, probably to do LEED on CH3 instead. It'll still get the gold level. The adopted Arlington County policy establishes both options as acceptable equivalents. But we're going to propose, and I think we have support on this from the building staff, to have the option on each building.
It'll be gold on whether you use LEED or Earthcraft, it'll be at the gold level. That's what's on all the sites.
Some specific energy efficiency and other commitments that were made in 2019.
All electric.
I want to hear
Significant
HVAC, backup generator, all of that.
I'm going to go to Karen now.
Yeah, well, I think my colleagues have asked about this question. So I wanted to learn a little bit more about the affordable housing. I understand for this specific one, there's 42 units, you want to add an additional 21 units. But then on house of building 3, that's where the committed affordable units are going to be, right?
Yep.
How many more are you adding in exchange?
I think we're about to send Emma and Aaron a proposal. And I initially pegged it, I'll just tell everybody it's 7, but it's not, we're not
7 in total?
A third of and that's often the metric for if your earnings 21
Still being
units.
worked on.
Okay.
I don't mind if we add more. CH3 is 100% affordable, and those units are committed at 99 years for affordability, pursuant to the agreements for financing, et cetera. So what's being done here site-wide is when additional density is earned, we're adding 21 new units, we're committing to Arlington County, from a zoning law perspective, that we're adding more units within CH3. Those units are already going to be affordable.
And can you tell me what the proposed composition of those 7 would be? Meaning, are they 2-bedroom, 3-bedrooms? I think this commission has been really pushing for having family units. And so curious.
CH3 has a large number of family units, and what we did for CH6, we did essentially the same thing, was a spread of 1s, 2s, and 3s. And again, what I wrote this afternoon that staff will ask soon was 2-bedroom, 3 bedrooms, 3 1-bedrooms.
Sorry,
But
can you
again,
say that again? And I know it's still
it was
negotiating.
3 1s, 3 2s, and 1 3-bedroom. But again, I want to be clear, it's not going to affect the number of 3-bedroom affordable units in CH3, right? Those are going to be there either way.
Right.
So it's really, it is a bit of legalese that we're crediting units that are going to be
Already.
already affordable because
But not committed affordable in the conditions, which is actually where we have like the legality behind the affordable units, if that makes sense. So the whole building is affordable, but the conditions right now require only a certain number of them to actually be committed affordable.
Oh,
So they're
I see.
committing further units to that legality.
The 99 unit.
Yes.
And to help give context on this so that folks aren't confused or think we're trying to win something here or get a windfall or whatever.
Yeah.
The
It's almost
entire
already
site
in the zoning
is
ordinance.
interconnected with the financing for this entire project. So what Jack was saying earlier is that these market rate townhome style multifamily units are helping cross subsidize the rest of the project. So if we committed any of these units in CH7 and 8 as affordable purchase units, we then have to, or the county really would have to make up the shortfall with additional funding. And that's why we're using affordable units within CH3. And I could have done it with CH6 or something else, but CH2 is a huge building with its own that. But the idea here is that we're delivering 600 roughly affordable housing units, and that, you know, under the county's metrics for bonus density, et cetera, would earn an immense amount of density because there's enormous value in that subsidy. And so that's what's justifying adding 21 units here. But really, adding 21 units here also has a substantial value to the county in financing the project in general. And just because that's way more units to sell, it's probably, you know, more value, as Jack was discussing, that cross-subsidizes the rest of the project. Just want to be clear about that so that folks understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, and why everybody, you know.
I could, but I'm sure you can understand why it seems as if.
Of course,
it's
so
sort
that's
of-
why I'm trying to give the context.
And you're not really sort of adding to it. And,
Yeah, but I mean, again, there are gonna be 600 new affordable units on the site, which is enormous. I
Big
can call on
achievement,
people.
big
if I'm
achievement
not-
of the Crystal City Sector Plan.
Yeah.
Affordability goals.
I mean, of course, if there's any more that you guys could do, and that rather than just 7, it would, you know, it just seems like such a huge trade-off, 21 units and then only 7 being added. And I understand sort of 600
I
in
started
total.
at about a third because that is typically what we have done historically in Arlington. Often, it was about a third of the bonus density is committed to affordable. That number might go up. But again, it's not going to affect the number of affordable units on the site. We have about 600.
That still hasn't been agreed to by staff yet. so
Yeah, that's
we'll-
I'm just telling you what we proposed, which I think might.
And we'll hear more.
Yeah, at planning commission,
There should be
definitely.
something final.
So is this still for years 1 to 99, or is this still a 100 to
For the
130?
county, it's a 30-year commitment. So that is, again, county policy, sort of standard commitment.
Okay, and the last time we had this conversation, it was for years 100 through 130.
Yes.
Which
Yes.
didn't make any
Yes,
sense.
yes.
That's fine. I did not understand it as an additional commitment above what Apple was doing, but if that's the case, then, you know, I digress.
We'll clarify with housing staff.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a question on conditions. Under the December 22 disposition and development agreement, it says that the project must be completed by January 1st, 2028, and yet there are slides that show construction out through 2030. So I'm wondering what's going on with that, and the neighborhood is also really feeling a lot of construction fatigue. So if we can compress this and actually stick with the 2028 deadline, that would be much better. But I'm hoping that there's a serious discussion if there's a consideration of extending to 2030 as the slide proposes.
Process and other related delays, that the biggest factor there. And then I know that this team is ready to build as soon as we possibly can. It's going to take time. We have to get this approved, and then we have to do permitting, which can take a very long time these days, although we've got a great team. So I don't know if Jack, you want to add anything to that, but I think we're trying to build as soon as we can.
Yeah,
So from a contract perspective, there may be extensions, et cetera.
I mean, the moment we were awarded the project by the county, we have been flying. I think we are super excited about how seamless this process has gone. So I don't know, I mean, the timeline on this seems like we are at a record speed here. where we're going to have an entitlement, ideally, if we can get by some of these issues in a couple of months. We've already begun working, we're confident, we've begun working on detailed engineering. We'll be submitting for permits as quickly as we can complete that, provided we all can come to an agreement, positive vote in a month or so.
We really do hope that we get this over with as quickly as possible, all at the same time, as far as construction goes.
Yeah.
And I do note that we're going to be trying to move through the site briskly, but it's not for me.
I don't know if it's worth saying, and you're closer to, the APA issues, but those require enormous subsidies. There is a limit to what I think the county can offer and can offer it. So constraint, I think, from APA's perspective is these deals need subsidy. There also is, and again, I'm not as close to it, but I would thinking like a developer, they also probably don't want to be cross cannibalizing. So they're trying to lease up building. They don't want to be leasing two buildings at once. And we also have had discussions with WHC about they wanted this to happen sequentially so that the entire site isn't just a war zone, although the duration is shorter. So there's there's the financing from the county, and there is this market issue of not having to lease two buildings at the same time.
Everything takes longer. I'll tell you that.
Always.
That's also real estate, unfortunately, and what we did want everything to be done earlier when the original RFP was awarded.
You were referencing site conditions.
Yeah.
So will those be updated?
Yeah,
with this? Okay.
those are in the works and they'll be obviously finalized by the time we go to planning commission.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Is construction part of this discussion?
Sure.
Okay. Please keep us informed of your construction plans. And we are already having problems with Crystal House 3 that's basically closing down 8th Street between 18th and 22nd. It goes down to one lane, and there's many problems with that. One of it is the 20th Street between Eads and Route 1 is tiny, so if it backs up on Route 1, you need to be careful on how you're doing.
So a couple of things. So we're super mindful. We do almost all of our projects are infill in, Capitol Hill or Old Town Alexandria, tight spaces, existing neighbors. So we're mindful. We will have EYA people will be on the site. We will hire a general contractor to do the site work, which is relatively limited, but we are our own general contractor for the vertical. It will be an EYA person that's out there. We've already begun, we've already planned where our construction trailer will go. We've already provided for renting parking spaces for our contractors so that they're not, parking their vans illegally or crowding out the community. So we're thinking it through now. We'll get, how we access the site and deliver materials. It's going to be tough those days that the cement trucks come in, the days that the lumber packages get delivered. They're going to be challenges, but those are going to be pretty short.
Fern is really narrow, and 18th is just a really important street.
Yeah.
So keep us informed, keep Alka informed, and let us give input, and let us find a way to even there's problems.
Yeah, and they're right, and we do hear those, right? There's mud on the streets, there's nails on the streets, so we watch down the streets. We go through with a magnet truck to make sure tires aren't, popping. So try to be good neighbors.
I'll give you Jack's cell phone.
I was going to say, you need a hotline.
You will have a community.
You will have a
I'll
hotline.
do my speech. There are standard conditions for construction. You heard this before, man, but there will be a community liaison. EYA is a great group, APA is a great group. There'll be real people who work there and are local, et cetera. We'll have a required meeting at some point. I don't think the early utility work out the required meeting, but I promise you DES is looking at those things and making tough choices. It's very, very difficult to build in urban environments. Anyone who's walked with Boston over the last 5 years as it was just under construction in general knows how it could be. This should be a little bit better than that.
I'm interested to hear how, when this site's done, there's no more construction in here.
It's going to be done. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's all done.
There's not much else that could be in.
There's not much dirt left.
Tony, I'm going to you.
Okay, so all I want to understand is this affordable housing scheme. So basically, site Site-wide, all of the affordable units are put in Crystal House 3, including the 7. No.
We've had two previous amendments. We've had an amendment for Crystal House 6 and Crystal House 3. Those went from market rate buildings to affordable housing buildings.
The
Those
whole
were already
buildings?
approved.
Okay.
The whole buildings.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but it was 432 and 86 or something like that. So those were market rate before and now they're affordable. And we're gonna be contributing those in the legality terms, in the conditions to gain the additional bonus density, which is allowed per the zoning ordinance, section 15.5.5.9.
There will be additional affordable units as well in CH5 and probably even some in CH4, although CH4 is one that will be back probably for you guys on at some point, or at least a community meeting, because there'll be changes to CH4 as well.
So if I'm understanding it right, so we have affordable housing scattered throughout the different buildings, and that is accounting for places like this one where there aren't affordable. And so it sort of is a collective. Right. Okay. Wait, the townhouses are subsidizing?
Yes.
The land value that's.
Land value, got it, okay. And then the community benefit from that is the affordable housing in other buildings?
Correct.
And parks. Okay, I got it now.
The major community benefits here were affordable housing, parks.
A lot of it. Yeah.
The parks are big, and the affordable housing now is just an immense amount for an area.
Yeah, I thought I understood it, but now I truly get it. So I'm good now.
You can always ask me.
I have no questions because I already understood everything you all did. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
You almost said that with a straight face.
I know, I tried.
Peter.
You said at the beginning, you all are following best practices on stormwater management. I'm sensitive to the time that we have left, but can you say a little bit more about exactly what that means?
Karen's on it.
Yeah.
Karen, can you bail me out?
Best
Hey,
engineer.
everybody. Hi, Karen White with Walter Phillips. I think, sorry, to make sure I heard correctly, was the question about the stormwater management design?
Yes.
I
Okay.
made a statement that they were best management practices. And if you disagree, I got that from Travis.
Yeah, that's what we call our BMPs, our water quality facilities. So along the front of the units that face the public street, there will be those bioretention planters that you probably see around when new homes are built that take the roof water down into a bioretention planter that's adjacent to the stoop. And that's how it treats the roof of the front units. And then the units that face the interior of the site, those roof drains are all collected underground, and there are some grade level, more traditional rain gardens that treat that roof water for the phosphorus removal, and they also provide detention as well. So those are our main BMPs that we're implementing on site.
Thank you.
Peter, do you know she's looking right at you? Look at that, she's looking right at you.
Yeah.
And Karen, for me, what's evolved in the jurisdictions in the area over the last 5 years, 6 years, is this idea of recharging the water where it falls, right, on site, as opposed to, holding it, detaining it, and slowly letting it out through the system. Is that fair? Kind of the evolution of stormwater management practices?
Yeah, yes. So even the planter boxes themselves that have a solid bottom, the water does filter all through that media and in that stone. And then the bioretentions that are more internal that don't have a concrete bottom, they do have a lot of soil and then stone. So the water is eventually piped, but some of it can also infiltrate too.
Okay, we're at 8:40, so I'm going to move us along briskly. Yeah.
Nothing to add.
GD.
It's interesting to hear talking about affordable housing, what's affordable. We all lived through the missing middle, and now as a BZA member, I'm living through all of the appeals. So these are affordable, but yet what it does really is increase some of the inventory, but not necessarily address affordable. That's sort of my pitch. I also think that what we're hearing now is an example of what the neighborhood has been dealing with on minor site plan versus major site plan. We've had a lot of conversation in the neighborhood meetings, and we've had a lot of conversation tonight, and it's going to Planning Commission and County Board, and that's all because it's not minor. That's just my editorial. I did hear somewhere where the offset for affordability was adding 30 years to the commitment to Crystal House 3. So I think somebody needs to confirm that. And also with regard to construction, we're already seeing, as Pam mentioned, construction for CT3, including the removal of amazing number of large trees already. And we have approval for Crystal 6, and I don't know where that stands construction-wise, but if we have several years of construction on EADS for CT3 and your project, Fern, there's no room for 6. I mean, I hope that somebody's paying attention to the sequence of how this is happening, because just CT3 and 7-8 alone is going to be monumental, not just for the site and the people who have the misfortune to live there right now, but also all of us who surround that and try to use the sidewalks and the streets every day. So that really is important. And then just, of course, a contact person, which I know you said is part of the condition, but it will be really important, not just for Aurora, but also for Crystal City. So we need to be sure that we know whenever any kind of an issue arises, who to contact, although I have every confidence that you'll have somebody, as you have committed to.
We always
available
have
to
my
it.
number.
But we don't want to have to wander around looking for an official person if we can, if
We
we
will
have
have
a
somebody
name
on
and
site.
email, and yeah, how to make sure that
We'll
we
have a
know.
trailer there.
And we don't even have to bother staff in order to do
well,
that.
that's what I
You can
want.
always reach out to planning staff as well.
Yeah, but if we have a contact person, we don't have to bother them either.
Yeah, and I'll make sure that I remind them as we're going through permitting.
Thank you. This has been very helpful and necessary. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes.
We can bring
Thank you,
the-
Judy.
We have obviously a lot of stuff on phasing, and we can talk about planning commission in more detail if folks want to hear that, just because of construction. In fact, we can be prepared for that.
Yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Cindy.
Hi, so all electric, we've arrived at last. So HVAC, hot water heating, cooking.
Yes.
so Electric stove.
How about
Fireplaces.
Electric fireplaces.
Fireplace.
And is there a backup generator somewhere? Is everything separately utility?
Yes.
Everything separately metered?
Yes, another advantage of being fee simple is everybody has their own utility, their own meter.
Right, appliances are gonna be Energy Star.
Yes, as a part of it's part of the condition. It's not only the Earthcraft multifamily, but also Energy Star.
And the windows that we were talking about, how big the windows are they?
You know, Art friendly is like crazy, right? 60 minutes and I mean, the news last night.
Yeah. You know,
We'll have to look at that.
Birds don't have to be, I think under, and I'm making something, but I think it's not so at the bottom, it's not where birds are, but there's a level where birds do fly, and the more you have.
Part of it depends on the height of the trees.
The height of the trees, exactly, look at trees, the greenery up on the roof. So that's, you can get that. And we didn't talk about biophilia that much, but it's native plants. What is the tree canopy on the site? Dan is on.
Dan, you percentage of tree canopy on the site?
Give me a second on that.
I've got it.
That number.
It was, the required is 17.6 and provided is 19.2. That's what I have, Dan.
Yep. So what we're doing is the required canopy, and then, but then by the trees that we're taking down, we have to provide additional canopy for that, to make up for the lost trees. So that's why the proposed canopy is higher than what's required.
That's tree canopy, not vegetation as a whole.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct. So that's large canopy trees, small canopy trees.
That's not a number I've seen.
Okay, I was just at a meeting where people were saying, we don't have trees, but we have like 40% of vegetation.
That's not
grass. Yeah. Okay, I think it gives me a good sense. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, just to follow up to the trailer. Please make sure, this spares me saying it when it comes to planning commission, having been in Boston and seeing the plans go through. please make sure that somebody who's in the trailer is aware of all the things that were spoken about in these meetings, because typically they are not. Most of the times they seem to be like, oh God, it's the neighbors against them, just placate here and that's about it. So please be sure, because they're never part of this, they never hear any of this, they never hear any of the concerns, they're usually coming in from someplace else. So please be sure the sensitivity is there.
Yeah, the only thing I can say to it is, this is what we do. We build in urban areas. We're not out doing greenfields. So our guys have been with us, our superintendents, I mean, decades.
30 plus years.
So again, this is a tight space, but it doesn't compare to the spaces we've been in.
Yeah,
We've done 13 projects in Old Town Alexandria.
Good.
I can promise you, it's
And
tighter,
ongoing
more fragile.
communication with the neighbors and related associations and things will just make everybody happier.
I'll pass that on to APA as well.
Okay, and Jim, online, do you have anything you want to add?
Not now, thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we're kind of at the end of the meeting, and in other buckets, if, I won't do a round robin since we are at 8:46. Does anybody have anything else they want to add, kind of that hasn't been discussed related to the major site plan element aspects, the changes that we're talking about, including zoning? Zoning was discussed at the ZOCO meeting in July, so there's already been one review of that, but if anybody has any outstanding questions to the zoning changes being proposed for this project.
Delivery and food drop off. Did we cover that?
We, yes, briefly, we've planned for 2 internal spaces on the site that we don't own that property. It's part of Washington WHC, and they've agreed to, Angelina, short-term 15-minute parking signage on those.
Okay.
And they've been oversized for truck dimensions, and there's one near CH7 and there's one near CH8B.
We're lucky in the sense to have that internal space, those sites don't have that in Arlington. We do have street parking.
Yeah.
We'll request a lot of that, some of it to be short-term parking. That is up to DES to permitting, but they regularly grant those requests. So that's generally what county staffers kind of expect to pick up drop off in an urban environment. And that will be there as well. But we're lucky that we have this site to take advantage of some internal spaces too.
And mailboxes are internal, so we plan on postal trucks parking internal, not on Fern, to access those mailboxes. And the one thing we still have to do is get the fire marshal on addressing, because that will affect delivery. Is everything a Fern address? We don't think so. So that's on our to-do list.
Interesting. Street.
Yeah.
Okay. And number 2, general complaint from when you saw us at the Aurora Highlands, still don't have access to the pool if you buy the property.
We don't.
That's up to, so unfortunately, when the whole site was owned by one company, Roseland, in 2019, we could say, yeah, well, sure, that's a great idea, because it's a beautiful, huge pool.
Yeah.
It's been renovated. It's no longer the case, and they do have a right in CH22.
I mean, it makes sense.
We'll ask again. I mean,
But we're sad.
we've done
Can
this
you try
before.
like with a pretty please?
If you want to volunteer to negotiate.
Sort of.
The Board of Health
Yeah.
controls how many folks, and so I think the answer we just have to continue the conversation. They, I assume, would love to collect a couple $100 a month as a membership from the folks living here, provided they can. They of course can't do it at the expense of their own residents.
Other questions or comments, part of other?
About bird friendly glass, Leo was suggesting having some other windows, and that could help with making it less attractive to the birds as well. Maybe.
We'll take a look.
Okay, Tony.
One quick thing. I like the zoning idea, using stories instead of feet. And this is for staff. I think it would be interesting to apply that to other topographically challenging locations. I think the Air Force Association building is coming to mind, because there's this huge just slope in the middle of the property. So I think it's a good idea, and I think we can use more.
Okay.
I'll just make a quick closing statement. Thanks, you guys. This is really good. I think the community will have a street edge, which I think everybody will appreciate instead of seeing that vast parking lot. So the urban design will seriously benefit from this project going up. I think, it's great that we're doing this missing upper middle. Sort of.
Oh,
Right, so that's great, you know, we're really excited about that, and then I think, you know, it's just, you know, I know that we can be sometimes a little bit sort of, you know, giving you some suggestions at these meetings, but you know, it's all meant to be constructive. Yeah, exactly, and we're really passionate about the neighborhood, and we're eager to welcome the new neighbors, you know, as we can, so thanks.
You feel our passion too.
Oh, yes, for sure.
Okay, so we're going to talk really quickly again. We already went over this, the next steps. If you want to participate in public comment, please let Peter know if you haven't already, or put your name in the chat. Emma, can you just go over the next steps again, just for everyone?
Yeah, so after this SPRC meeting today, we will be going to the Planning Commission tentatively in November. I think those dates are in early November, but we're not sure
Like
which.
the day before the election and the day after.
Yeah, so we're not sure which days. Yeah, it is right around the election. We're not sure which one of those days it'll be on, but mark those on your calendar if you're interested in attending, and then it'll be going to the county board pending Planning Commission's recommendation also in November. So keep those dates.
So there's more opportunities to provide feedback either by email in the coming weeks or by participating in public comment at Planning Commission, County Board. So yes, we can keep having discussions if you feel like something wasn't said tonight or you want to provide information about elevators. So now I would like to move to public comment. We've got 3 people signed up.
Yeah, we have 3 commenters signed up. Mr. Byrne is first.
Okay, Dr. Byrne. We're promoting you now.
Hello, yes,
2 minutes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what kind of, how much misinformation you've received, but for one thing, the applicant has said all the plants are native. Well, they're not. At least 3 of them are native to only Europe and Asia, and 3 are native to other parts of the United States. The ones in Europe and Asia, one called Hakone grass, which is a Japanese name, a feather grass, the feather reed grass, which is Europe and Asia, and St. John's wort, which is Europe and Asia. Then 3 others: oak leaf hydrangea, gray green juniper, and another one here, Mexican feathergrass. They're all native to Western United States or other parts of the United States, but not to Arlington and vicinity. These are not native grass, native plants. You have cultivars. These don't feed pollinators because they're just cultivars. They're not native plants. There are not very many native plants in this thing. I'll be sending you a more complete message of this in the future. I hope you can revise that list before the Planning Commission goes through. Otherwise, I would say the Planning Commission. And the other thing is the rooftop. No solar panels, no green roof. You say it doesn't have to be up to the town owners. That should be on your property. You should be able to put in the solar panels and the green roof, regardless of before the townhouses are even made. The other thing is the green grass and the lawn. That's much too much. That could be pollinated plants, things like that. It's a very unbiophilic project. There's nothing climbing green walls, nothing hanging on trellises from the roof. This is an unbiophilic project. Hey, something which they say has native plants, but is not largely. And so I'll be sending you a message about the plants anyway, and I hope that you will change that planting list before the Planning Commission. And maybe I can get a response from the applicant on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Byrne.
The next speaker is Rebecca Ritzel, and she's in person.
I'm Rebecca Ritzel. I live at Crystal House 1. I'm in the bottom tier of the affordable housing program there. I only get 2 minutes, but I really think that you seem to all be forgetting that what you're doing is, you've seen the show The Wire, where there's the public housing project and then there's the guy sitting on the couch in the middle, right? That's what you're doing. You're developing housing in the middle of 2 very, very troubled towers that have just spiraled the drain ever since Washington Housing Services took over. And then when JBG Smith pulled it out in January,
I don't know how much misinformation you've gotten today.
Management now, where problems that we've had. If you haven't watched it already, please watch the July meeting of the Arlington Landlord Tenant Commission, where a regional manager from Cushman Wakefield gets grilled about all the problems going on at the current site. And I can hit the high points for you, which include locking doors are not being replaced. They are looking for parts on eBay, and one of the doors that they could not find a replacement for, they just didn't. They just replaced it. There's no key fob walk. Anyone can walk in. The police have had to remove a vagrant who was living in one of the units. Late one night, that was extremely disturbing and scary for the residents. There was a major flood last week on the 5th floor of Crystal House 2. The fire company can verify this. It took an hour. No one was able to get in touch with anyone to turn the water off, so it was just gushing in Crystal House 2. And residents have been displaced. There's been no communication. This is a horrible management company that they've got there now. You've got to do something to fix it. What I've heard from the Landlord Tenant Commission is there's nothing the county can do because there's no leverage with the way that the financing is structured through Amazon with Crystal House 1 and 2. The county can't hold these people accountable for being terrible landlords. All right, so just please look into that. I would really appreciate it. And there is never in 3 years that I've lived in Crystal House, have residents, most of whom are low-income people of color, been invited to take part in any of these processes. There's apparently been community meetings. I found about this tonight because I was driving up. Yes, I know.
Talk to me about this after.
Pardon? Yes, all right. So thank you to the Arlington Community Association for having a newsletter. I finally found it and I'm here tonight.
Okay, and our final person's name is Jackson. I'm so excited to have you do.
So there is 8 million people living in Virginia, and 3.2% of them are over 80, and 46% of people over 80 in the US have disabilities or problems walking. And I get that elevators are expensive, but I feel like you guys could have like one person lifts that just like go up. So if they can't walk up the stairs, it can just be a little thing where they can just go up, and there can be like a little latch in the railing, and they could just open it up and walk out. And that, I think that'd be smaller and then less expensive than an elevator and would help a lot of people, especially if like they're visiting.
Thank you, Jackson.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for coming tonight and participating. We are going to get out 3 minutes early, so thank you so much. Going to Planning Commission, then County Board, and then we'll. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.